Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Is everyone having a good next so far? Yeah? Right? Let's shake our hands. I know that you all sit in a lot of sessions every day. Thank you so much for being here. How many of you are really interested in generative AI? There we go. Thank you. Thank you so much. How many of you are doing AI today? Great. How many of you are machine learning experts? Oh, quite a few in the room. Isn't it great we get to talk about the work we do in machine learning now? Yeah, thank you. I like the thumbs up. Hi, my name is Caroline, and I'm the Managing Director of our Global AI business here at Google, working alongside Lisa O'Malley, who's also in engineering. Lisa, do you want to introduce yourself?
Lisa O'Malley, I'm the Senior Director of Product Management in our Cloud AI group. I look after our search products as well as our industry solutions.
And Hamidou,
Good morning.
my partner in crime.
Yes, good morning. I'm Hamidou, Dia, VP of Global Generative AI Solution Architecture. So I lead our solution architect and black belt team globally.
Thank you. And my very special guest, Sao Xiong, please introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi everyone. I'm Sao Xiong. I'm from Singapore. I'm part of the Government Technology Agency of Singapore, GovTech for short.
Perfect. And so we're talking about data governance and the business impact of generative AI. But of course, what better than someone who's actually been dealing with a lot of the regulations and everything around data and data efficiencies than someone from the Singapore government. And for those of you who don't know, I would like Sao Xiong to talk about, you have the AI Trailblazers program that we've partnered with you on. Tell us a bit, tell the audience a bit about the AI Trailblazers program and why it's so significant for you.
Yeah, so a couple of months ago, we did this program called the AI Trailblazers together with Google. So a few of the government agencies in Singapore worked together with Google to come up with this program. And this program has two tracks. So one track is to help government agencies to learn, onboard, and do projects on AI. And the other was actually for the private sector, for companies who are interested to get on board the same program as well. The idea is that within 3 months, we want to get 100 use cases from both private and public sectors and drive those use cases towards a prototype and launch those as products. So I think it's been a pretty exciting program. We've really only been in it for about slightly more than a month, and it has been pretty good in terms of take-up. We have 50-odd use cases already. Ongoing, we run workshops, we do educational kind of boot camps for developers, for public officers, as well as people from the private sector. And we help them get the use cases together and drive it in terms of getting the necessary infrastructure, the necessary approvals, and so on and so forth. And eventually, we hope to launch these projects within the next few months.
That's fantastic. So can you tell us, why did you choose to collaborate with us to help you with that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm in a Google conference, right? So, but to be realistic about it, actually, I think Google is one of our best partners in Singapore because they have the strength in the technology, of course, the engineering, and they have the capability to deploy the infrastructure that we needed. And of course, there is a lot of very willing and enthusiastic and passionate people within the team helping to drive this program, because it's not easy, because a lot of these things are new to everyone, including ourselves. And there are a lot of things that we're just trying for the first time. So we need people who are willing to try and not be afraid to fail and not be afraid to, say, pivot when it's necessary. So I think Google is the best partner for that, because they are very willing to try and explore together with us.
Were there any things specific to maybe our data governance framework or like the security and privacy tools we had that also helped with some of the decision making?
Of course. As part of the engineering, when I talk about engineering, it covers a spectrum. It's just not about the technology alone. It's about the governance, the security, and privacy, and all those tools that help us to drive this program forward. And hopefully, when we roll it out in production, these will also help us to be a lot more robust and a lot more production capable.
Thank you for that. And to highlight also, what Sao Xiong was talking about, Lisa, he mentioned the thing about partnership. I have with me a Google HSBC partnership bottle because of, we also announced with the anti-money laundering solution. So Lisa, tell us a little bit about how these types of partnerships are helping your teams also develop products and solutions for industry verticals.
Yeah, let me take a step back a bit first and say, data governance can be a very narrow topic or it can be a very broad topic. Narrowly, Google Cloud has a commitment that your data remains your data. It stays in your tenant. It's not used to train any models. It's not used to inform any business around Google. But it's also a much broader topic, and we think about it in terms of data governance, data privacy, data security, and compliance. And these topics are front and center for most organizations, but nowhere more so than in financial services, which is a very highly regulated industry, obviously. And we worked in partnership with HSBC to develop a product we call our anti-money laundering product. And this was, groundbreaking in terms of the money laundering space. But it meant that it was a new paradigm for the regulators, for the internal auditors to understand. And so they're very used to understanding rules-based systems. You know what the rule does, you can explain it, and then you can move forward. When you think about AI, it's not quite as simple as that. And so we worked with them to understand their own internal frameworks in terms of the auditors and governance groups that they need to get approval from internally. We put together model architectures, methodologies. We worked with them on explainability and how do you explain what the model has done? How do you think about the outcomes of the model and how do they work? And then we went with them to their internal groups to help explain the process. And likewise, we also worked with the regulators that they work with to understand what they were looking for. And so this helped us build a better product, and it helped us bring it to market successfully with HSBC as our first customer. Another example that, again, a regulated industry is healthcare. And one of the biggest problems in healthcare is simply just data wrangling. There are many, many disparate systems. There are many, many versions of standards that are used. And so one of the first things we had to do before you could do any machine learning or AI is actually get the data into the cloud, harmonized and normalized. And so in order to do that, we worked with many partners, key partners for our healthcare data engine and our healthcare APIs, making sure that they were HIPAA compliant. And so as we got the data in, then we looked at, okay, what do our customers want to do with it? They want to do analytics use cases, they want to do machine learning use cases. And so we expanded our HIPAA compliance across all of our Vertex AI suite in order to make sure that we were, both us and our customers, were covered from a data privacy, data security, and governance perspective. These partnerships that we have with customers as we develop products are really critical. We can build a product in isolation, and that's not going to be useful to any of you. When we build with customers and we understand the use cases that they're trying to light up, it helps us not just push forward the technology, but push forward the ecosystem and framework of governance, security, compliance that we need to have around our products.
Thank you so much for that, Lisa. And Hamidou, your teams, even in your previous role when you were building, the solution engineering function, you worked really closely with Lisa and the product teams. For example, the AlphaFold work that was done, the DeepMind launch, but your teams were the ones who actually built the solution. Can you talk about how that has also helped with also customer adoption and working in partnerships with customers like Xiaoxiong to get feedback?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things we do is collaborate very closely with our research organization, and that they publish these papers, but you need to take that research and really operationalize it. So AlphaFold is a breakthrough innovation into protein folding that really help advance medical research. And what my team did, for example, worked with engineering, took that research paper and really develop, operationalize it, and help customers. How can you deploy that model on our infrastructure? How can you load your data? How can you do AI on top of your information? So those are the type of solutions, accelerations we build when it comes to research and helping, just our customers operationalize some of the researches.
And so now that you're also doing the Gen AI and the generative AI solution engineering team, are you finding that we're having to have this good, strong foundational and structure already with not just the data governance, but the solutions, and then only add the generative, layer on top?
Absolutely. So the number one question I get from customers is about data and IP protection. I think everyone now understands the potential, how this technology is disruptive, how it can help them innovate, drive transformation, but it's really about how do I protect my IP? What about security? How do I make sure I don't get embarrassed I don't embarrass my brand, et cetera, et cetera. So, and Lisa touched on it, really, we have these 4 pillars, right? Privacy and governance, we have security, the distributed platform, everything we do in our hardware to make sure we provide a secure infrastructure. Also the responsibility from an AI perspective, how do we train our model, what type of information, and what all the controls we go through before we deploy a model. But when my team works with customers, the number one thing we do first is help them understand what is the reference architecture with Gen AI, and really help them be comfortable with explain how the model works. The Google Palm 2 model is frozen. What happens within their own private tenant when they do training, when they do customization? Where does that information live? How it is protected? How it's encrypted? It's extremely important. Number one, to really define that reference architecture on top of their foundational cloud. If they're a regulated industry, or if they use PCI data or extra, how do we help them deploy the right blueprint? And then explain the generative AI layer on top of it, helps them feel comfortable, then we move forward from an implementation perspective.
Yeah, and so Xiaosheng, especially with you, you have a mix of the private sector because you're also enabling services for all the different programs, startups and things in Singapore, and you also have your constituents, your citizens, and all of that data.
Right.
Can you talk a bit about how you've been able to separate the two so that you can still drive innovation while still being responsible?
Yeah, as of now, I think a lot of the use cases are still being worked out, and besides the AI Trailblazer that we are working with Google, we also have many of the agencies now starting up their own little projects, little programs, and internally within GovTech, we are also building a lot of tools and capabilities, and also products that we want to launch, both for our agencies as also for the citizens. So there are a lot of things that are going on. In terms of the governance and so on, it's actually a very fine, thin line to walk, because at one hand, we do not want to discourage innovation. We want to proliferate. But on the other hand, there's always the fear of hallucination, right? You do not want the government to start spewing nonsense or even giving the wrong advice and something happens. And so on and so forth. So we need to walk the thin line quite a bit on that. But at the same time, there are different levels of data. In fact, we have 2 dimensions of the data, which one is more related to the security of the data, all the way from open data to secret data. And then we have the sensitivity of the data, whether are they more sensitive or less sensitive, of more concern or not. So we need to also work along these 2 dimensions to make sure that whatever systems we build and whatever data we build, they are placed in the correct infrastructure. They also placed at the correct positioning where we target our end users, whether they are going to be internal people, or are they going to be agencies, or they are going to be citizens. So there's a lot of figuring out as of today, because it's all new to a lot of us, and as well as the IP related stuff. The good thing about it is this is not something new for us. We have been doing this for a few years now. In fact, GovTech was set up precisely. We realized that the world is changing. we can't do what we used to do, which is really literally to just procure software, get outsourced partners to customize it, and then we roll it out. So we need to take on more ownership and more development of the products that we want to roll out for both ourselves and for our citizens. And therefore, we have been building up a lot of these tools. So for example, we have set up our government data architecture that is rolling out for the whole of government. We have tools like for Privacy Toolkit. And that turned out to be really useful because as we try to take in data, there's a lot of concern about PII data. And therefore, how do we anonymize this data? And in the past, we have actually built a privacy toolkit to help us to anonymize these tools. And we have been progressively rolling out this tool. So this tool now has become very useful in our efforts to anonymize data before they are used for training or used for analysis or used for whichever use case we have. So then now we have a lot of various building blocks that we can use to enable our use cases. And that has been really helpful in pushing our cases forward.
That's actually really good to hear. So you heard the keywords are building blocks, doing small things, experimentation, but still having the core fundamentals of your data governance and all of those pieces in there.
That's right.
Have you seen, and obviously with generative AI, especially over the last sort of 6-7 months, are you finding the projects where you had generative AI, you're seeing some impact, like, whether it's a metric or, a business outcome? How would you characterize that for you?
I think they are still in early times, still very much in early times. So definitely measuring whatever kind of goals that we have, measuring and being able to have metrics to measure. Are we really getting the kind of value of the projects and the products that we roll out? In many cases, they are productivity driven. Like, for example, government, we actually give out a lot of grants to citizens and to businesses in order to drive the economy and so on and so forth. And when the businesses, especially the small, medium enterprises, they claim for the grants, we have people processing it. They will take the receipts, they will take the paperwork, and they try to process it. So it's a lot of laborious work. And we have been working on cases to improve their productivity by being able to take in documents from all kinds of documents or various types of formats and be able to process it using AI. So that's actually one of the use cases where it's been driving productivity. But having done that, we also want to take this and make it a common product such that it does not only process claims from grants processing, and there are actually a lot of different types of grants that we are giving out to the population, to the businesses and so on, for research purposes and so on. So we are also driving it for other kinds of claims. Like, for example, internally in the public service, a lot of people, when they buy stuff and do procurement and things like that, they make claims as well. Right? So these claims, a lot of it has receipts. So we are also taking the receipts to sort of like process it through AI, to do audit analysis, to prevent fraud and so on and so forth. So there's one big group of use cases that's driven towards how do we make things or make people more productive by reducing the laborious work and putting human labor to where they are more effective. So
I really like that you highlighted that. It seems like you started with what the outcome or the journey is supposed to be and what the experience is supposed to be, and then put in all of the tools and technologies and processes behind that to actually support that. I think it's very similar also to what Lisa, you had said with how your engineering team works, and Hamidou, how you're thinking about reference architectures. Now, if we have to think through, like, what would be the one piece of advice you would have for everyone who's looking at doing things with generative AI today? Like, we've heard really good themes here, but and this is open to all three of you. Whoever wants to go first.
I can go first. I think to me, it's making sure that you're thinking about a holistic data governance strategy. We tend to be reactive in terms of, oh, we need security here. Oh, we need access controls here. Oh, what's happening with my data? Where did it come from? And I think if you just step back at the start of the journey for Gen AI, and make sure that you're thinking across all the pillars that, Hamidou and I talked about: data governance, privacy, security, compliance, responsible use of AI. I don't think for Gen AI we know all the answers. I don't think any of you will know all the answers. I think we'll work towards the answers. And as long as you have those pillars in place and people are thinking about those pillars, then you're setting yourselves up to be as measured and as careful as you can be in order to drive the innovative and really exciting outcomes that I think we're all thrilled to be a part of.
Hamidou?
Yeah, no, it's a great point to build on top of that. So I advise, many customers, and in addition to that, it's really how can you evolve your internal processes, your internal controls, your audit controls to really look after AI, after data governance of AI within your organization. So I have some customers I am meeting with, and we were discussing around, the risk of AI for the organization, the risk to the brand, and they really decided, our own internal audit will now have an AI component, right? How do we don't want to stall innovation, we don't want to prevent innovation, but we're going to put a really very streamlined processes so that AI project can come to the committee, talk about the type of information they need, make sure we run them through our various controls, and before we let them go and continue implementation. So there are different best practices. On the technology side, how do you go through all those 4 components? But internally also, you need to update your internal processes and controls to make sure that you're not introducing risk to the organization.
And so for you, Saoshan, you are doing both enterprise and government technology services, right? And so what is the one piece of advice you would give to either private or public sector or people who are interested in doing this?
Yeah, I think for Gen AI, we all know there's a lot of hype right now, right? It's really at, I don't know whether it's at the top of that hype cycle or maybe inching towards the top. But definitely there's a lot of buzz around it. I mean, just in this conference alone, right? Google Cloud next, but we are just talking about AI only, right? So I think there's a lot of hype. But at the end of the day, the technology that we deploy, we're always talking about the value it brings. So we need to do. But of course, when you start a project, we have a use case, you always have an understanding of what it does. And you always have an inkling of the value that we will bring. Mm-hmm. But all of these things, you actually need to measure it. You need to have metrics to properly say, this is the value that it's going to bring. We want to measure it this way. And therefore, we want to test the use case. If the use case do not meet the measure, then I think we just need to be brave enough to stop doing it or pivot to do something. Because otherwise, you're just going to invest and do a lot of stuff. And it's actually detrimental in the overall goals that you want. Because as you drive the Gen AI use cases, you might be so absorbed and engrossed in it that you don't think that you will still keep doing it despite it not providing value. And you are just going to destroy everything that you do, because at the end of the day, you'll be still measured by the value that you bring. And if it fails, Gen AI will be blamed, right? You say, look, AI is no good, and therefore let's not do AI anymore, right? It would not be the case where, actually it's just this project and it's not everything else. So I think my advice would be careful about what you do and measure it all the time to see the success that you bring, and be brave enough to pivot when it is not meeting the targets.
Mm-hmm. I like that you mentioned the thing about being brave. I think this is the same for us even in engineering, right, Lisa?
Yeah.
How the teams are testing and...
Yep, you need to be brave and you need to be willing to pull the plug when it doesn't work. Brave in starting and brave in stopping.
And blameless, right? Blameless as well. So I think for everyone, it's really difficult to think about how you get started, right? Everybody is telling you, what are you doing with AI? Bosses who never cared about AI all of a sudden are coming out of the woodwork. So what are we doing with AI? Do we do anything with machine learning? We've been doing machine learning for a long time, boss. Yes, no problem. But okay, what about generative AI? And so for me, I actually see, and Hamidou, you and I have been having a lot of conversations with a lot of boards and C-level. I feel like generative AI is just the unifier of all of this work that we've all been doing, and an easy way to now query all of these complex models to give you answers in just plain language, right? And so we're all definitely seeing that. So I wonder, what you all think of this. Our president on our ads side, whenever he meets with customers, he likes to say, think about AI for growth, think about AI for efficiencies, and then think about AI for the future. And I like that, the way that's framed, very much to your point, Xiaoshan, is like, how do we innovate? How do we still build? But then how do you pivot? And when do you know how to pivot? And so for those of you who are being told, like, we need to know what you're doing with AI, I think those are great frameworks. I mean, Lisa, what do you think of that? The growth, efficiencies, and...
Yeah, I mean, this is very aligned with what we hear from our customers and what we talk to our customers about. Different businesses are in different cycles. Some are trying to drive top-line growth. Some are trying to control costs. But everybody's trying to build for the future and make sure that they're cannibalizing themselves before somebody else does. And so I think the framework makes a lot of sense.
Hamidou, you've seen a lot of these.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, I think with generative AI, really, and Lisa and team engineering is doing a fantastic job. The barrier for entry has been lowered, right? Before, and that's really what generative AI brought, is that, we love our PhDs and, super technical ML engineers, but the platform now, if you look at the Vertex AI platform, these managed services we have really lowered the barrier for entry, and enable innovation all the way from the engineer to the business analyst to the user. And you can innovate, you can drive efficiency, but for example, all the boards room and CEO I've talked to, they're really worried about being disrupted with AI, not getting on board and having a strategy, defines the data strategy, the AI strategy, the generative AI strategy, because someone in the valley or somewhere in Texas will, rapidly innovate and disrupt them. Yeah. So again, it is now a new era, and all organizations are looking at how to really leverage this technology to drive, growth or efficiency, but also, watching their back, making sure they're not being disrupted as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so if we were to talk about, I think a lot of people, yes, we need to do data governance, et cetera, but one of the ways I think we can also mitigate bias in all of these systems is when we start to look at what data is needed for the solutions. I think the more people are part of that human in the loop, that reinforcement learning with human feedback is really, really key. And so I've spoken to quite a few customers this week, and just in general, the hallway conversations, and quite a few of them said, I actually didn't realize that my job still matters, even if it automates a lot of the things that were laborious, right? The rote work that Xiaoshan also mentioned, because I'm still that human in the loop, and I'm still driving a lot of these things, and I can help mitigate bias in the data sets that's being used because my perspective still matters. I know we hear this also from a lot of our marketing customers who are using these to generate images, generate copies, and things like that. And so Xiaoshan, I would like to understand, obviously Singapore, very multicultural, right? It's a center of commerce and hubs, and so how are you also able to do you have a customer advisory board, where you have all these different industries represented to give you feedback on some of the solutions?
So GovTech as an organization, it's quite interesting because we do not directly service the citizens. We actually enable our agencies to service the citizens. And of course, all the agencies have their own forums to be able to get feedback from our citizens. In fact, we built built many tools for different agencies to collect feedback from the citizens. And very interestingly enough, this feedback forms a number of use cases for AI, Gen AI, because sometimes there's just too much feedback and you're not able to really figure out what's the general sentiment or the overall feedback, or even main clusters of feedback from the citizens. And there are a number of projects to analyze these feedback and to get insights from them, Gen AI, LLM related kind of use cases. So we do have that. And we also have tools where we enable citizens to directly give feedback to us. And these are all prevalent for all the agencies and ourselves as well.
That's actually really, really happy to hear that. So we have microphones, and we actually have also a mic runner. So I would love to open it up so that we can actually get some questions, because we have these great experts here who can help answer some of the questions. Does anyone have any questions you'd like to ask?
In some of your conversations with leaders, board members, have you found a direct correlation in the willingness to get involved in Gen AI as it correlates to their risk departments, their posture, the maturity of the organization? So if they have a more robust risk assessment team, risk team, they're more willing to take that challenge, that leap into Gen AI. Have you seen a correlation there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, AI is not new. Many organizations have been doing some form of AI from a, predictive AI, etc. But having a data science practice, having AI, systems, or having AI algorithm running within the organization obviously makes the executive team a little bit more comfortable into jumping into the new generative AI trend, definitely. And organizations that have not at the right level of maturity, that haven't experimented with AI, this is really, they're like trying to understand the concept, and they're not even prototyping yet. But the organizations that I've seen experiment and are actually now moving into production use case have, some level of maturity and AI experience.
I'll just add to that we see a lot of customers experimenting first with internal use cases, so use cases where they're providing assistance to their employees who are then assisting customers. And that's an easier way, a less risky way to test their way into these generative technologies.
Exactly.
Oh, there's one over there. There's two. So we'll start. Your microphone's over there. And then we'll have you second. Please.
Yes, hello. Do you expect any, or do you foresee any sorts of regulation when it comes to the usage of generative AI to the public, or do you expect any sort of regulation when it comes to the usage of generative AI towards the public? Or
we expect and we see a lot of regulation. This is, obviously a complex space, but we see every country and every government trying to wrap their heads around it. And actually we see global collaboration across regulators as they're trying to think through this. Singapore actually notably is one of the countries that is furthest ahead in thinking through AI regulation, as well as the EU has a slightly different slant from a privacy perspective, and the US government are investing heavily in experts to get everything up to speed. So I think we expect regulation. We expect to be a part of informing that regulation. Yep. And we expect to partner with others who are also participating. So I think it's going to be a fast-moving space, and I'm hoping that the regulators will come forward with frameworks that make sense and that can be built on over time, and don't either lock innovation or trap us into paradigms that we should be able to go further with in terms of customer service or other areas of development.
And just to give you an idea, we're even working with insurance regulators as well. Life insurance, health insurance, auto insurance, all of that, and they're even thinking about how to do what regulation means in their space with regards to some of these innovation pieces. Next question.
If you could speak to some of the kind of ways that you can monitor usage. So the thing that comes to mind is, say, a user asks a question and they didn't quite get what they had. Are there built-in tools for them to say, hey, that I didn't get to the answer I wanted for you to dig in behind the scenes? Or even more importantly, I got an answer and it doesn't pass my intuition check. Like, I know enough about this area that something seems wrong and I want to flag this for follow-up. Are there tools like that built into Google's generative AI to, just make that auditing process a lot easier?
Yeah, there's a couple of ways that we're thinking about, and I'm sure Carolyn and Hamidou can expand on this. But there's as simple as a thumbs up, thumbs down mechanism that we're implementing across multiple products, so that there can be user feedback. But then obviously there's a number of model evaluation frameworks, model bias evaluation and analytics that we're building into the Vertex platform, and we announced this week, that allows you as technologists within the enterprise and within the organization to understand what's happening with the model and how users are interacting with it.
Yep. +1 to everything that you just said. And so, if anything, I would encourage folks to test it, give us your feedback, see how you like the experience. But you can also design your own experience to collect some of the human feedback during the solution that you're designing, right? And then what that end user experience is supposed to be. I actually have. Oh, you have another question right there. Yes. Perfect. Because I have questions for you as the audience too. So please.
All right, I'll be quick. When you look at data governance and Gen AI, you have to secure a lot of data. Some of us have close to 100 petabytes. Do you recommend focusing on just the data sets that would be leveraged for Gen AI today, or go at scale and try to get all of it done?
I have an opinion on this one.
Go for it.
So this is the chicken and egg problem, right? And so some clients already have a project to test their data fitness. But they know how to test it based on the outcomes they're looking for. So it makes it easier for them to chunk up the work that needs to be done, right? Whether it's by domain or whether it's by business function or whatever it is. And so my opinion is that if you know the thing, and I said growth and efficiencies earlier, trying to clean up your data is an efficiencies thing. But if you know that this data set is going to help with the growth of the business, that makes it easier for you to go, okay, I need to clean this up first because that's going to drive this project, and then be able to then go from there. Because otherwise it's like, oh my gosh, all of this is going to take me 3 years. How am I going to do with that? And so that's my perspective.
No, I agree. If you're cleaning all the data, it feels like an IT project. But really what you want to be doing is delivering value to the business. And so thinking about the value you want to drive and connecting that data and then making that data ready would be how I think we would prefer to partner with our customers.
Yeah. Hamidou, you want to add?
Yeah, but if there is one thing that really AI has highlighted is, and this is not new, the importance of a data strategy within organization, right? I think that AI without data, there is no AI without data. And I think that many organizations are really now accelerating their data strategy, figuring out where their data gravity, what type of cloud providers they want to partner with to really from an information management. But yeah, honestly, these models from a tuning, from a customization perspective, do not need also massive amount of information. I think Lisa and Caroline are right. Just, you can focus on the right domain. That will provide value first, have the right data there, and then iterate from there. You don't need a big bang approach within the organization.
I'm sure Saushan is the same thing, what you've seen, right? Different agencies need different things, so you don't need a whole giant data set for all agencies to use.
You don't, but I feel that conversations, I used to work in the private sector as well. Government actually looks at things a little bit differently, and I feel the agencies being agencies, they're all part of the government, and from an outside perspective, it would seem like just one government. But the reality is they are all holding on to different pieces of the puzzle. Mm-hmm. Bringing all of them together is a monstrous job. Mm-hmm. So I would say if you belong to a larger organization, a large enterprise, I think you somehow feel the same thing. Because different business units might be holding on to different parts of the puzzle. And especially if the business units actually don't operate under the same business altogether, right? Then there will be problem in doing that. And in that case, data is a infrastructural piece of work because you need to string them together first. You need to allow for discoverability. You need to have that mechanism where you can extract the data and put data from different parts together, and also have agreements between the different business units, because business units as business units, like agencies as agencies, they not necessarily would cooperate with each other as well as you think they would, and therefore you need to have a mechanism, you need to have arbitrators, moderators, to make sure that all of these pieces are put together properly. So it's actually quite intense piece of work, but as Hamidou was saying, without data, there's no AI. So it's part and parcel of the journey anyway. Right?
Yeah.
And if you want to actually have that fast use case, then you probably want to look at the smaller ones.
Yeah.
And once you have proven it, then you can tell the powers to be to say, hey, this works, but now we need to do more
Scale.
serious work and scale it
Yeah,
up.
scale it out. There was another question here, right in the front.
How you doing? I have
Good,
two
how are you?
questions. My first question is, when you think about data management, once you have a data set, whether small or large, and you run that through the model, now that model has learned that information, do you need to maintain the original data set? That's the first question. To continue to, I don't know, so the model can continue to maybe read it at some other point. Number two, once that model has then processed that information, does the model itself now become a data governance entity that you now must manage, now that it knows the information that it processed, right? Now you can ask questions against that AI and get information. And now is that another, I don't know, data management
Peace.
paradigm shift that you now have to think about access and these types of things?
Lisa, you want to take this one?
So I can take a first pass at it. I'm not sure if I'm going to answer everything that you asked, but in general, you train the model, and then that model itself is your model within your tenant, so you don't need the data still there. Now, if you have user data that gets refreshed all the time, clearly you need a pipeline to continue to inform the model. And then your second question was around governance of that model. I think governance comes with GCP. We have, what we call security horizontals in place across the organization. So data residency, access controls, customer managed encryption keys. That all comes as part of the Vertex platform, part of the GCP platform. And so your models inherit that inherently. Hopefully that answered your questions, but I'll ask.
Yeah, to add to that, I think like Lisa said, again, in Vertex AI, for example, we offer parameter efficiency tuning, right? You take data, you train the model, you do some fine tuning. The result of that is an adapter model with some weight. And that's really, you've generated new weight in your adapter model. That's what matters, right? Of course, you need to continue to govern the source of information, but the model has been fine-tuned, it has new weight, it has an adapter layer, then inference will take that into account, talk to the larger Google model, and that's really how it works. So it's not just continue. Now, if you want to retrain, you want to do more fine-tuning, of course, obviously you are free to do that, but it's important to understand that there is not this real-time connection to your source data. Once you do the fine-tuning, you have no adapter model that your application will work with. I don't know if it helps, but.
Exactly.
Well, with that, thank you very much for attending our session. Please, fill out the feedback form in your app, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of Next.